You have the ability to enter the dream world, a world of vivid hallucinations and horrific monsters. Draw power from the nightmares that live there, but do not let them corrupt you, for there are other dreamers seeking power this night, and there is only room for one to escape from the realm of nightmares. Should you become corrupted and turn into a nightmare yourself, you must hunt down the other dreamers and consume their power. When the night is over, only one dreamer or nightmare will be left standing.
So you get to be a dreamer, siphoning power from the land of the dreams, but you got to be careful because otherwise you turn into a nightmare. I mean, that's some straight up like Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Warriors level stuff right there. But does the game deliver on that promise? We're going to find out as we review Lucidity Six-Sided Nightmares. Lucidity Six-Sided Nightmares is a dice drafting, push-your-luck game for 2 to 4 players with an optional solo variant. Designed by Shannon Kelly and released in 2018 by Foxtail Games and Renegade Game Studios, players take turns drawing dice representing power siphoned from a dream realm. As turns progress, players accumulate points from this power, but also come closer to becoming a nightmare. Whether they finish the game as a dreamer or nightmare, the first player to 15 points wins. So I backed Lucidity through Kickstarter. What drew me in initially was the theme of the game. Being a dreamer, hunting nightmares, siphoning power from the dreamscape. I mean, that just sounds awesome. Conceptually, that's a cool concept for a game, whether it's a board game or a role-playing game or whatever. Theme in general is what sells me in games, what gets me playing them in the first place. I've got multiple games about time travel on my bookshelves because who wouldn't want to play a game about time travel? So if the theme is solid and if the game delivers that for me, I call that a win. I call that a successful game. So what we'll do now is we'll take a look under the hood, so to speak, look at how the game plays, and then we'll talk about, where the game delivers, where it maybe struggles, and whether or not, you should pick it up. Setup for a game of Lucidity is incredibly simple. Every player gets a player card that they place in front of themselves, along with a glass bead to track their sleep track. You then set the 4 nightmare cards in the center of the table so everyone can see them and reach them. Every player gets a double-sided reference card outlining the turns and the dice face. And then you fill the dice bag with the 80 Lucidity dice, and you are good to start playing. At the start of the game, every player is a dreamer, and each dreamer turn consists of 5 steps. The first is choosing your sleep track. You'll move your glass bead, and you'll just select which sleep track you're going to start with for the turn. Once you've selected your sleep track, the second step is to draw, return, and roll dreams. You're going to draw the number of dreams equal to the sleep track that you selected. You will then return 2 of those dreams and roll the rest. The third step is resolving dreams. Dream resolution is based on the dice face that you rolled, and the dream resolution happens in the same order. First, you resolve any power face dice, and they go into your power track. Resolution in general is always just putting dice onto your player card. The second resolution is you look at hunt dice. Any dice on the hunt face go onto the hunt track. You then look for the exhaust dice. Any dice there go into their corresponding track. And finally, any dice on their shadow face go into their corresponding shadow rows. When you resolve a shadow face die, you will trigger an ability based on the nightmare that you're resolving. So resolving a nightmare of the depths, you will then draw and roll 1 dream from the bag and resolve it like the rest. Resolving a nightmare of envy, putting that shadow die there, you're going to re-roll 1 dream of the next player's choice. So the player next to you is going to have you re-roll 1 of the dice from your player card, and you'll then have to resolve whatever face it rolled on. So more than likely they'll have you re-roll 1 of the power face, and at that point, hopefully you'll get your power back. They're hoping you're going to roll something, less beneficial for yourself. Shadow of imprisonment. Rotate 1 of your exhaust dice to its shadow face. So you would take 1 of the dice up here and rotate it to its shadow face. And then the Nightmare of Primeval Fear, you may move one of your shadow dice to a hunt space. So you could move a shadow die to this hunt space. That is step 3, resolving the dreams. Step 4, you're then going to check for filled rows. Checking for filled rows follows the same order as the resolution. First, you look at the power row. If the power row is filled, everyone has one final turn to take whatever actions they're going to take, at which point you will then score the dice in your power row and potentially win the game. Filling the hunt track. If you fill the hunt track, you're just eliminated. So game over, nothing else you really need to worry about. If the exhaust row is filled, what you're going to do is draw a dice from the bag, and then you're going to return any dice from your power row of the corresponding color back to the bag. And then if you check your filled rows on the shadow side, if you have filled up a shadow row, you will then become the corresponding nightmare on your following turns. And that is a dreamer's turn in Lucidity. Now, the push your luck aspect of the game is once you've hit the end of your filled rows review, if you're able to continue, if you have not become a nightmare, if you have not filled your hunt row, and if you have not filled your exhaust row, what you can then do is push your luck by moving your little glass bead on the sleep track up to the corresponding next section. So in this case, 7. From there, you then take a full dreamer turn just like you did, only this time you'll be drawing 7 dice, returning 2 to the bag, and then going from there. A dreamer's turn ends when either one of the rows has filled or they've pushed their luck to the end of the sleep track and can no longer go any further than that, or if they choose to just end their turn. The push your luck aspect after the first turn is optional. At the end of a dreamer's turn, whether by choice or because they were forced to based on a filled exhaust row, the dreamer then chooses to rest. If they rest, they get to remove either all of the dice from their exhaust row that show an exhaust face or 1 dice from the exhaust row that shows a shadow face. From there, play continues around the board with each dreamer taking the same turn, following the same steps in the same order. The dreamer does have some control over the dice that they roll on their turn. A dreamer can choose to spend power from their power row to re-roll a die of the corresponding color. They would spend the power putting that die on the corresponding nightmare that it matches, and then they could re-roll that die and resolve whatever the new face is that shows up. When a dreamer fills a shadow row, they will then become the matching nightmare. When that occurs, they will clear off all the dice from their player board other than the power they have accumulated so far for the game. They will then take any power dice on the card from people spending it to reroll, and they will take that nightmare card and place it over their shadow rows to indicate that they have become that nightmare in the game. Once a player has become a nightmare on their turn, they have one of 2 actions they can take. They can either consume power, which is simply taking a power die on its 1 or 2 face from another player's board and adding it to their own power row. The other is they can send minions. What they would do is they would draw 2 dice from the bag, and then they would return one of those dice and give that other die to another player of their choice to roll and resolve. Other than the 2 actions available to them, a nightmare player does have an ability that will trigger on another dreamer's turn if they roll a die of that nightmare's color and roll a certain face. So for Envy, if they roll a shadow or an exhaust face on their turn, when they go to resolve that, you will trigger the Nightmare of Envy's ability, which is stealing a die and adding it to your power track, and then forcing that player to re-roll additional dice. Play continues in this fashion around the table between the Nightmare and Dreamer players until at the end of any player's turn, if a Nightmare or Dreamer has 15 power in their power track, every remaining Dreamer player then gets one final turn before the game ends. At the end of the game, you then will look and see who has the most power in their power track. Whoever does, wins. All right, so let's dive into what I like about Lucidity. So first, the game is very straightforward, very easy to teach. I've taught this game to my 6-year-old. We've played a number of games, and not only does he understand it, he's actually beat me a couple of times while we've legit played the game. I haven't, let him win or anything. He grasps the concept of the game. He grasps the rules well enough that he's able to just make smart decisions when he's playing this game, which says a lot about the design. It's very well put together. The rules are very tight, and it's very easy to teach new people to play the game. Related to that, the game plays very quick. The box says it plays in about 20 to 30 minutes. I found that to be true. Most games I've played, if even a little bit longer, honestly, most games can be shorter than that 20-minute mark if you're playing with people who know what they're doing and have experienced the rules before. So it's great that it's a really quick game. You can just throw it down real fast. It's good, you're waiting for people to show up for like a D&D group or something. You got a little time to kill, or you don't have a lot of time to play games, and so you want something fast and quick. Lucidity is perfect for that. It goes down on the table fast, it picks up fast, and you don't need, even with new players, more than maybe 5 minutes for them to get the concept of the game. One of the things I also like about it is just purely kind of from a gamer perspective is it's a dice hucker, which I love. I love Dice Masters. I love Quarriors. Any game where I can just throw fistfuls of dice across the table, that's perfect. That's what I love. Those kinds of games scratch a certain itch. So Lucidity definitely delivers on that. And then, when you talk about the dice, you talk about the game itself. One of the other things that is just worth mentioning about this game is it is gorgeous. The art is just fantastic in this game. It's a little bit darker. It's got a little bit more of a nightmare horror-esque vibe, but it looks stunning when you put it down on the table. It's got a lot of components in the deluxe box that are equally gorgeous. It has a family-friendly set, so you can play it with young children and not have kind of those slightly more graphic or gory, art styles. And even that, you don't feel like you're losing anything with the game because it just looks so beautiful, even with that version of it. So there's definitely lots to like about this game. There's a lot of reasons you want to, maybe add it to your shelf. All right, so we've talked about what the game does well. Now let's look at what the game kind of struggles with. The first is that it's a little simple. And while that's a strength in that it's easy to teach and you can get it on the table quick, kind of the flip of that coin is that it can become repetitive. Your 10th game of Lucidity doesn't feel much different than your second game of Lucidity. Another issue is that there's a kind of a disparity in the play styles. And what I mean by that is when you play as the nightmare, when you become the nightmare in the game, it sounds cool. It sounds, like that opening intro. You're gonna devour the other dreamers at the table and stuff. But if anything, the nightmare role, you lose actions and you lose, things that you want to do. It becomes even more of a passive role in the game, and that really dovetails into kind of the core issue that I have with Lucidity is that Lucidity, there's not a lot of interaction with the other players. You don't, there's times where like maybe you drew the color dice that I was hoping to get, or haha, you had to put a dice on a spot on your board and it kind of penalizes you a little bit. But that's about the gist of what, happens at the table when you're playing this. Playing Lucidity, you feel like, you're almost playing your own solitary game while 3 other people are playing their own individual games around the table as well. So it's just, there's no interaction with it. There's no reason to play this with your friends versus just playing it by yourself. And that leads to the end of the game where there's just, it doesn't feel satisfying to win the game. You don't feel like you've accomplished anything. It's, oh, well, I rolled better than you did, or I happened to, draw the right die at the right time, but, you don't feel like you've accomplished anything. Some of these factors can be mitigated a little bit with the deluxe version. It does come with other components, kind of mini expansions that will change the play style of the game a little bit, but you shouldn't need that deluxe edition to kind of address these core issues with the game. And basically that the base game is just, there's not a lot of depth once you've kind of dug into it. It doesn't mean it's a bad game, but it doesn't draw you in. It doesn't make you want to play it. All right, so final thoughts with Lucidity. One of the big things about games in general is theme is a big kind of motivator for me. It could be a mechanically unsound game, but if the theme delivers, if you feel like you're really accomplishing what the game sets out for you to do, that can sell me on it. And unfortunately, Lucidity doesn't really hit that mark for me. It's a fun, casual little game that you can throw on the table, but I don't feel like a dreamer hunting down power in the dreamlands. I don't feel like a nightmare that's devouring my opponents. I just the game doesn't accomplish what it sets out to do from a thematic perspective. It's fun, it's quick. I like that I can get it on the table fast, but I don't often find myself wanting to put it on the table just because of that repetitive nature and because of that, again, that kind of that lack of delivering what the that awesome intro paragraph gives you. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button if you did. Comment below other games you'd like me to review, things you'd like to see on the channel, and I will see you all later. Thanks.